So this is one of those videos that I do not want to make. And one thing that I've learned along my YouTube journey is that the videos that I don't want to make are typically the videos that I need to make the most, because not only are they the most beneficial for me, but they're also the most beneficial for you, the viewer. Now, with that being said, I pride myself on my transparency, and so I'm just going to come clean. So I relapsed again yesterday. Now, I understand it may be difficult for you guys to have a good sense of the timeline of my NoFap journey and the relapses and everything like that. And that's because I don't really keep track of it by the date so much as I do the length of time, right? So I was on 5 days yesterday. Yesterday was my 5th day and I relapsed. And what I realized after that relapse was that, for one, willpower is not enough, even if you have a why that you consider to be more important than relapsing. It's not so much about just having willpower and having that why, or even having that accountability system. Because, like I said in my last relapse video, I did not want to make a video like this. I'm simply documenting my experience. But what I realized was that the reason why I've been struggling so much with NoFap is because I have certain traumas or certain aspects of myself that I need to reveal to the world, not for the sake of attention or for the sake of validation or comfort or anything, but for the sake of freedom. And I'm going to try to speak in coded terms as much as I possibly can in this video, because there is a certain level of vulnerability that even I'm not willing to get to. If I'm being honest, I plan on taking a lot of these details with me to the grave. But with that being said, I realized yesterday after my relapse, when I had that post-nut clarity, if you will, that I'm not addicted to self-pleasure. Self-pleasure is not the addiction. The addiction is purely psychological. And the reason why I'm so certain of this is because oftentimes I have urges well before my body is ready to actually engage in the process of self-pleasure. And this is something that I talked about with one of my friends before I left Texas, was that the urges, when you have an addiction to the content, pornography, the urges are psychological in nature. They're not physical in nature, right? And oftentimes, by the time I pull out the phone or pull out whatever device I'm using and get myself ready to commit this act of self-indulgence, I'm not even physically ready to do so. Right now, speaking of the physical aspect of it, some of you may remember, if you've been subscribed to my channel for long enough, you may remember when I lost my virginity. I lost my virginity early 2021. And it wasn't a very easy process for me. For one, because obviously I was afraid, right? I was, 20, going on 21, and I was a virgin, didn't really know what I was doing. Nevertheless, that wasn't really the issue. The issue was that I couldn't get it up, right? And I remember at the time, I made light of the situation, but it was really actually confusing. It was really genuinely confusing. I couldn't understand why I could not get it up. I just could not wrap my head around that, especially since I had been on semen retention for, I believe, 8 or 9 months at the time. I couldn't understand it. In retrospect, what I realize now is the content that I've been consuming, and of course, in this context, we're talking about pornography, the content that I had been consuming all this time, or maybe not all this time, but the content that I had progressively gotten to was no longer about sexual intercourse. And so when I found myself in a position to actually have sex, it wasn't even appealing to me. And you guys might remember that I've made multiple videos, or I've at least insinuated or explicitly stated in multiple videos that I don't care about sex. I really don't. And that's something that I'm slowly but surely starting to recover from. I'm starting to reach a point where I am more into the idea of just having actual sexual intercourse, which to me is a positive development in terms of my sexual health. But nevertheless, I feel like this video is kind of me crossing that barrier into having a healthy sex life, especially given that I have a girlfriend now and I don't want these problems to resurface, right? So like I said earlier, the content that I've consumed for the vast majority of this time is not really sexual in nature. It's sexual in the sense that I was able to get off to it, but ultimately, if you train your mind, if you program your mind for long enough, you can get off to just about anything. Now, let me just go ahead and put this disclaimer out there. And this is not to put down people who are indulging in this type of content. It's just, this isn't me. I'm not indulging in anything that's related to bestiality or pedophilia or anything that could get me arrested, right? And I think that for a while, me knowing that is what I used to justify me indulging in that content, was the understanding that it's not hurting anybody, it's not illegal, so why should I feel guilty about it? But what I've realized is it's not so much about feeling guilty about it, it's about having a healthy sex life and having a healthy psychological state of being, right? Being able to maintain your mental health and perceive women in a healthy frame of mind. And what I realized is just because you don't sexualize them in a regular context doesn't mean that you're not sexualizing them in another context. Now, like I said, the content that I've consumed, it's progressively gotten worse. And now it's to the point where I watch these videos and I know in the back of my mind that there is absolutely no way I would ever actually partake in this sort of activity or in these sorts of activities. There's absolutely no way I would. But at the same time, I've conditioned my mind with so much inertia, with so much momentum, that now that's pretty much all I can get off to, right? And this is why I'm making this video, is because I realize this isn't about NoFap. It's not even about semen retention. This is about no porn. This is about curbing the addiction to pornography, because I understand now that when you indulge in self-pleasure, just the action itself, ultimately, you're not losing anything that can't be or won't be regained. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transferred or transformed. So ultimately, when you indulge in sexual pleasure to the extent that you reach orgasm, to the extent that you reach that state where your body's ready to finish, you're not necessarily causing any harm, because ultimately life is made of that. It's life force energy. And you're not losing any life force energy because your body will continue to produce it. As long as you're a healthy man, your body will continue to produce it. So that's not really the problem. I'm not saying that you should just go about beating your shit 5 times a day, every day for the rest of your life, just because you don't watch pornography and you think that it's okay now. Obviously, you want to maintain some semblance of self-discipline, but at the same time, what I've realized personally for myself, and maybe some of you can relate, maybe some of you can't, but I don't even think about indulging in self-pleasure if pornography isn't involved. It wasn't always like this. It was not always like this. There was a point in time when pornography wasn't even really in the picture. But what I'm realizing now is, to an extent, I have watched pornography for a good portion of my life without really realizing it. I was just planting the seeds for what this has grown into right now. Now, like I said, I'm not going to get into any sort of details at all. At all. I don't care what type of relationship you think we have. And I'm not just talking to the regular viewers. I'm talking to the people that I know in real life. This is stuff that's coming to the grave with me. I'm taking this to the grave. But I am clearing my conscience with this video with the understanding that there is somebody out there, at least one person. Don't know who you are, don't know where you are. There is one person out there who is going through this same exact struggle. And I want you to know that it's not about self-pleasure. Because ultimately, if you indulge in self-pleasure, that's no different than your body having sex. Now, what I will say is that I do believe semen retention for short periods of time can be highly, substantially beneficial for your overall development as a person. I really genuinely believe that wholeheartedly. However, I'm not in this game to do semen retention for the rest of my life. Okay, I did semen retention for not just a 1-year period when I went on that streak. As a matter of fact, no, I did NoFap for a year. But I did semen retention for the first 18 or 19 years of my life before I ever indulged in self-pleasure. But, like I said earlier, to an extent, you could argue that I indulged in pornography from a young age without even realizing it. And this is sexual trauma that I've unraveled slowly but surely. And you guys will see some of this in my next book when that comes out, because I've been pretty much documenting this whole process of unraveling that sexual trauma. But this was a very eye-opening experience for me, because I realized that just because you're struggling with NoFap doesn't necessarily mean that you're any less of a person. Sometimes it's just a matter of your subconscious mind trying to bring something to your awareness. And sometimes it takes you relapsing to find the light of awareness and to figure out what it is your subconscious mind is trying to tell you. Because now I know that self-pleasure, self-indulgence is not the issue, and it never has been, and it never will be. Unless you're highly addicted to that in and of itself, generally speaking, your issue is with pornography. It's with pornography. And that's why I'm kind of diverting my course, in the sense that I'm not really looking to do NoFap. I mean, NoFap kind of comes naturally to me because, like I said, without pornography, I don't really even think to indulge in self-pleasure. But I actually, ironically, would like to get to a point where I could indulge in self-pleasure if I wanted to. That's not to say that I will or won't, but if I wanted to, I could do it without pornography. To me, that's the goal in a sense, because that would mean that I've reached a point where my psychological state of being as it pertains to sexual intercourse or sex in general, my relationship with sex, will have reached a point where it's healed. It's healed to the extent that I can now operate with that level of confidence that I didn't really have before, because I knew that I don't really care about sex. I don't think not caring about sex is something to admire, but at the same time, I don't think that having a sex addiction is something that's admirable either. I think it's about finding that balance and being able to just have a healthy relationship with sex, understanding that it's something that enables you to build a bond with your partner and bring life into this world. But beyond that, I feel like when you introduce things like pornography or that explicit content, whatever that may be for you, everyone has their own kinks and interests and all these different things. I don't know what you're into. I don't know what you're into. You don't know what I'm into, and you never will know. But what I will say is that when you're able to indulge in intercourse or even self-pleasure without pornography or without the thought of pornography, in my opinion, that is much more impactful in the grand scheme of your life than getting to 90 days on NoFap or getting to a year on NoFap. That's just my personal opinion, and that's from my experience. Remember, I've gone not just 1 year on NoFap, I went 19 years on NoFap and semen retention. And at the end of those 19 years, guess what? I was broke, I was a virgin, I had no self-confidence, and I just wasn't where I wanted to be in life. Not to say at 19 that I should have been a billionaire or anything, but I knew I wasn't living up to my potential. So semen retention or NoFap in and of themselves will not get you to where you want to go. But having a healthy relationship with sex can at the very least allow you to clear those blockages, which may be subconsciously perpetuating you being stagnant where you are in life. And that's not to say that I've reached that point yet, but I'm actively working towards it, because now I have awareness. And hopefully to that one person who's going through the same thing that I've been going through, you now have that awareness as well.